Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for attending my talk this evening. I'm really delighted to share some of my research for the Fort Dunree residency with you. I'm an interdisciplinary artist who works with video, performance, installation, and sound. And in my work, I'm always interested in uncovering hidden histories and making visible intangible, immaterial elements of our world. I wanted to start talking to you about some of my previous artwork, which gives some context to this current research. For many years now, I've had a particular interest in the human voice and the immaterial properties of the human voice. Our bodies will eventually deteriorate and shut down, but our voices can be preserved through recording technology and live on past our death. The human voice is a marvel, really. It's something that's a physical process, but it's not created by any one particular organ in our body. It is part of us, but it is also unique to us, and it leaves our bodies to enter into other people's bodies through their ears. I've repeatedly returned to the notion of the disembodied voice in my work and the voice's displacement from the body through recording technology. I spent many years exploring the physical displacement of my own voice, in particular through the art of ventriloquism. I spent 7 months learning how to sing without moving my lips. After a period of research into the religious and mystical history of belly speaking, which we now know as ventriloquism, I left the puppet out of the equation, mainly because the puppet only came into the act of speaking or singing without moving one's lips much later in the 20th century. I was also interested in kind of the physical effort being seen by the audience in my body, but my face remaining composed, so they're not being distracted by a puppet, they're seeing the whole process. I eventually staged a number of ventriloquist performances, live site-specific performances in unique locations, including an interrogation chamber and a tunnel under the River Thames. And when I make a site-specific performance, it's really important for me that the location, the site, somehow reflects the intention or the gesture of the work, that it adds further meaning to the work. So I'm going to show you a clip from one of my ventriloquist performances, just a short clip from one that took place in the Greenwich Foot Tunnel in London. And the space itself kind of shows this sense of depth, this hugely long tunnel, and it has a specific unique acoustic environment that causes these echoes, as you'll see. So essentially, with a lot of my site-specific work, the environment is integral. It's kind of intrinsically linked to the performance itself. I'm just going to share this video of this performance with you now.
Understand that the touch of your hands can leave me crying. I thought that I was all the you, that is true, oh so true. I love you even more than I did before, the darling, what can I do? Though you don't love me, and I'll always be crying over you, crying over you. And yes, now you're gone, and from this moment on, I'll be crying, 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 yes, I'm crying, crying over you.
So I'm moving on to talk about another site-specific performance now called Song to the Siren. In 2017, I started to research into the Siren myth, which I'm sure you're aware is a Greek myth about creatures, female creatures that lure sailors onto the rocks with their sublime song. I've always been fascinated in particular with myths which are about supernatural figures luring humans into acts of self-destruction in some way. I'm interested in what these myths might tell us about the human psyche and our subconscious desires, as well as self-destructive tendencies and behaviors. I had an opportunity to go on a short residency to the smallest town in Germany called Arnis, which is on the Baltic Sea. And there I created this live site-specific nighttime performance where I was knee-deep in the Baltic Sea. In this performance, I was harmonizing to the sounds of foghorns, layers of my pre-recorded voice, as well as my live voice merging with its mournful tone. The effect was as if multiple voices were emanating from my body all at once every time I opened my mouth. I wanted to create a kind of push-pull sensation with this performance. The foghorn is, of course, a warning sound, urging in a way the audience not to get too close. But the siren song is luring them in, drawing them closer in, essentially kind of bringing them into the water with me. Enticing them into the water. And so I wanted to create this kind of seductive image that felt difficult to resist, but was also deeply unsettling. Unfortunately, I don't have video from this particular performance, but I do have some of the recorded sound. And I'm just going to play you a very short excerpt from it. So moving on, a year later, in 2018, I went on a 3-month residency to Seoul with the Seoul Museum of Art. After my research into the Siren mythology, I became interested in South Korean myths about vengeful water ghosts called, I tried to pronounce this correctly, Mulguishin, who would drag unsuspecting swimmers underneath the water. I'd have come across a number of these kind of similar myths around the world about people being lured in or dragged under the water. And I noticed a pattern that they tend to, and this makes sense, emerge around coastal regions which have seen great tragedy and very tumultuous histories. When I was in Korea, I visited 2 islands, and I spent quite a bit of time there on these islands. The first was Gangwon Island, the second was Jeju. They're at opposite ends of South Korea. They've both been subject to multiple occupations, playing fundamental roles in Korean history. Gangwon, which shares a water border with North Korea, is full of abandoned fortresses from the Joseon dynasty, as well as a large amount of ancient dolmens. I started thinking about how this land had been endlessly reconfigured and remapped, despite always occupying the same physical space. And I started to imagine the previous occupants of these islands wandering around these spaces. I was filming my own explorations, which eventually became the basis of my short film, The Island. I wanted to, I guess, create a sense of a spectral being yearning to return to the earth, even if it no longer resembles the one it occupied. And I wanted to reflect on the mark that each individual leaves on the world, as well as the places that are no longer marked on our maps. So I'm just going to play you a short excerpt from this. It's a 5-minute film, but I'm just showing you around about 1 minute of it. Yours was the first body to wash up on the shore. And you are still there, on the island, in the cold ground, beneath the trees. She asked you not to come back and haunt her. So you didn't, despite her later pleas just to see you one more time. No one says your name anymore. All those who knew you have also lost theirs. Can you even remember yours? How many others now claim the same name? There are many replacements. For you and your body. For the space you once occupied. For the walls that once housed you. They have their own walls now. And their own maps. Maps that are quite different from yours, but describe the same geographical space. So on my return from South Korea, I decided that I wanted to think a little bit more about the role that sound played in my work, and I wanted to develop some more technical expertise. So I took a course in field recording and soundscape composition at Goldsmiths University, a short course there. On the course, I was introduced to various different types of recorders and microphones, including some more specialist esoteric type of microphones, one of which was a back detector that can record ultrasound. Ultrasound is sound above the range in which we can hear, above 20,000 hertz. And it's essentially inaudible sound to us. But what this back detector can do is it can, in real time, pitch ultrasound down so that we're able to hear it. And I've actually got a back detector here that I thought I could use to demonstrate to you. 1 second. Right, let's have a go. So here I am going above 20,000 hertz. We're picking up some infrasound now. At around about 70,000 hertz. And then this is a little experiment that I was trying earlier. Keys actually give off quite a lot of the infrasound. So if I turn it down to about 30,000 hertz again, and I rattle my keys, there you should be able to hear infrasonic sound that those keys make that we're not usually able to hear. I also was introduced to other types of microphones as well. One of those microphones was a coil microphone, which picks up electromagnetic signals. And I was also introduced to hydrophones, which can record in water. I learned quite a lot about the process of editing digital audio and compositional techniques during this course. And I was also able to experiment with multi-channel editing in a multi-channel editing suite, which was great fun. I just have the next image to share with you now. So this course led me to propose a sound-based project to Gasworks for a 2-month residency at Lugar Judas in Cali, Colombia. I was intrigued by how I might be able to capture some special characteristic of the place purely through sound and perhaps reveal something of its nuances and complexities. There's something in the process of analog recording of sound waves to digital layered composition that really excites me and appeals to me. It feels like a kind of different way to represent a space. However, when I actually got to Colombia, I realized my limitations in my ability to represent the place. There are so many, in Cali, the city of Cali, there are so many layers of history and complexities. And I was very much aware of my privilege as an artist and, you know, having come from the outside, and I felt immobilized and not sure of how to kind of move past this. But one day I came upon a huge ancient tree at the top of a hill situated next to an electricity power station. And I was kind of amazed because I could hear these birds in the tree mimicking the hums of the electricity power station. And I thought this was just like absurdly beautiful. And I kept returning to this strangely sacred spot and recording. And eventually I sort of started to pick out this tune from the electricity humming. And I started harmonizing with it, with my voice, and then kind of creating layers of my voice in post-production to create a kind of composition. And this became part of, or kind of the backbone of, a 15-minute performance that I did on my penultimate night in Cali called Receptor. And this has also since been made into a short film as well. So I'm just going to show you a very short clip from this so that you get a sense of how that worked. So on my return from Colombia, I realized that I wanted something else. I wanted to delve deeper somehow into these ideas, and I wanted to find some way to tap into or access the hidden information in our world. I felt frustrated by the boundaries of representation, but I was intrigued by how in that performance the human body could become some sort of receptor that could receive this hidden information and maybe translate it or push it back out into the world. And I realized that's quite an abstract thing to say. I was kind of visualizing it almost like the body being like a radio or a telephone receiver that could convert one signal into another. And that was the kind of metaphor I was thinking about. And this also reminded me of the role of the spirit medium who would channel the voices of the dead, and how in some ways in the 20th century, technology took over the role of the medium. In the early days of the photograph, mistakes in the process would be interpreted as spirit communication in some cases. And since technology has often been seen as a way to access the spirit world, ghost hunters often make claims that they're communicating with ghosts through technology such as electromagnetic readers. The idea of technology as a medium between the living and the dead is also a popular trope in horror movies such as the Japanese series The Ring. And I find it interesting that kind of glitches and mistakes in technology can be interpreted by ghost hunters as signs from the other side. But, you know, what is this other side that we're talking about here? Is it just all the information in our universe that we can't access because of our limited human perception, the world that exists beyond the veil? So I was thinking how perhaps I could create some kind of alternative mapping of space. And then I saw the open call for Fort Dunree. This is an image here of Fort Dunree for anyone who doesn't know it or hasn't been there. I found the Artlink open call not long after I returned from Colombia, and I saw it as a great opportunity to bring together several facets of my research. After my research into the my investigations into the water ghosts and spirits of Korea, and the time I spent wandering around abandoned fortresses, I felt certain that this would be a place with a rich and layered history, containing innumerable traces of the past and different histories rubbing up against each other. After testing out those unusual microphones in my field recording class, many of which had been designed by sound artist Jez Riley French, who's also been exploring the inaudible sound world for some time now, I thought it would be interesting to tap into some of the hidden information that surrounds Fort Dunree and create a new composition that I could harmonize with in a similar way to the Receptor performance in Colombia. Well, at least that as a kind of starting point for my thinking. I was also intrigued by the unique one-story lighthouse at Fort Dunree. To me, lighthouses are quite unique and mysterious buildings. They face out into the unknown, unaware of what they may be drawing to their shore. And also they have a relationship to that you know, the foghorn that I was talking about earlier, this kind of push-pull tension. And this is why I think they're often the site of ghost stories, actually. That's my little theory. So I had done quite a bit of research into infrasound for a previous project already. And I was interested in its relationship to so-called hauntings, essentially. Infrasound is sound below our range of hearing, approximately under 20 hertz. So it's at the opposite end of the spectrum to ultrasound. The world around us is full of infrasound. It's often emitted by generators and fans, but it's also important for the communication of various animals, including whales, giraffes, and elephants. Although we can't hear infrasound, we can feel it. And many are actually concerned about the adverse effects on us psychologically with infrasound, particularly in the case of wind turbines and people living near wind turbines, as they emit a lot of infrasound. It's been theorized that spaces that are often described as haunted may actually contain a powerful source of infrasound that produces uncomfortable sensations in the human body. For example, studies have shown that at around 19 hertz, the human eyeball will vibrate, causing dizziness and possibly creating optical illusions, such as the image of a ghostly presence in the corner of one's eye. Another quality of infrasound is it has very long wavelengths, and therefore it can travel really, really long distances. Infrasound is also produced by the ocean and also by volcanoes and seismic activity in the earth. So I'm curious to see what I might be able to detect at Fort Dunree. Infrasound can travel thousands of miles and is also key to whale communication. It can travel thousands of miles in the ocean and is key to whale communication. As part of my composition, I aim to capture some infrasonic, something of the infrasonic environment of Fort Dunree, but this is going to be the most difficult technical challenge. Unlike ultrasound, which has a ready-made device that transposes infrasound into the audible range, infrasound has no such instrument. There are apps and geophones that can detect and monitor infrasound, but nothing that pitches it up into the audible range. So I'm still talking to people about this at the moment, but at the moment I plan to use a contact mic that has the sensitivity to pick up sound down to 10 hertz, and then use a recording device that has a preamplifier that will allow me to record below 20 hertz. It's then a matter of experimentation in post-production, attempting to pitch the infrasound into the audible range, although this isn't an easy thing to do because of the nature of digital sound. So it will inevitably be a case of trial and error, but I'm quite determined. I haven't been able to capture my own infrasound yet, but I did find a really great example of it, which I thought I'd share with you. It's just a very brief little clip. So this is actually the sound of ocean waves crashing up against the shore. This is the infrasonic sound coming from that. I'm personally quite open-minded, perhaps ambivalent is a better word, about the presence of spirits in our world. But when I talk about the idea of hauntings in my work, I'm talking about it maybe more metaphorically, in the sense that the past has made some imprint on the present, and that traces of the past are everywhere. I'm always interested in what remains and how we can possibly detect it. This is why I'm also so interested in folklore and ghost stories, as these unreliable histories give us a direct link to the people that inhabited the world before us. And they tell us something about the values and beliefs of our ancestors. My ancestors emigrated from Carrickmacross in Ireland in the early 20th century to the northeast of England. And so it's particularly meaningful for me to do a project like this in Ireland, especially as a lot of my family's history is unknown to me, and I'd love to kind of discover more. I wanted to learn more about the history and folklore of Fort Dunree and the Inishowen Peninsula. So the Artlink team introduced me to John McCarran, an artist who is also a member of the Inishowen History and Heritage Group. In our first conversation, we talked a little bit about Irish fairies and sprites, as well as the Celtic water god, and I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly, but I'll probably get it wrong, Manannán MacLír. He also talked a little bit about unmarked pagan burial sites and burial mounds in proximity to Dunree, which got me thinking about what hidden information lies in the ground. I talked about this further with the Artlink team, and they directed me to the Oral Folk Archive and the British Newspaper Archive, where I found more strange stories about burial sites, as well as macabre stories of human bodies washing up, human bones, not bodies, human bones, washing up on the shore at Port Ban. I have an image here, which I'm sharing with you now, of one such tale documented in the Oral Folk Archive about a man who uncovered a peculiar ancient grave that appeared to contain a mixture of charred stones and human bones. So also on our first call, John mentioned to me that the History Society had a grant for a geophysical survey of a site near Dunree, as they had reason to suspect that there were remains of a pre-Viking monastic medieval settlement that was raided by Vikings. This survey actually took place a couple of weeks ago, and here's a picture of that survey taking place. I've since learned that the team, the geophysicists, are using electromagnetic fields to image the subsurface. I'd already been planning to pick up electromagnetic signals through a special microphone that I have, but this introduced a new element to my research and has got me thinking about how I might try to turn this geophysical data into sound. Now, there's already precedent for this. There are scientists, musicians, and artists that have turned all kinds of data sets into audio signals. We could look at it as simply another way of interpreting the data other than just through visualization. I've read that it can reveal nuances that help scientists to review the data in different ways. I'm hoping to be able to use some software that will allow me to make musical notes from the data. It differs quite a lot from trying to capture inaudible sound, ultrasound and infrasound, in that in those cases, I'm actually trying to bring those sound waves into, audible frequencies. But with electromagnetic waves, I'm not able to literally turn them into sound. It's more a case of trying to represent them some way through sound. So yeah, it's an attempt to interpret the data. So all of this, to conclude, goes kind of full circle for me. As I mentioned earlier, the ghost hunters often use faults in the electromagnetic frequency readers to prove the existence of spirits. There's a significant amount of pseudoscience around electromagnetic waves and ghost hunting, which I won't go into right now. But I do find it interesting that whether it's ghost hunters out with their EMF detectors, or artists and musicians with their field recording devices, or geophysicists sending electromagnetic waves into the ground, we're all trying to tap into something unseen and somehow bring it into the visible, audible world. So I'm still in the research stage of my project, and I won't make it to Dunree until next year, unfortunately, due to COVID. But I'm happy with the direction this is heading in, and new things keep coming up all the time. So it's shaping up to be quite an interesting project that will be a kind of, I guess, an exploration of this hidden world of waves, with a more perhaps poetic, artistic exploration of the space. I'm hoping that the outcome will be a rich site-specific performance at Fort Dunree, in which I kind of use my body as a conduit for this composition to flow through, and use my voice in different ways for this unseen world to travel through. I realize that's still quite an abstract idea, but I'm thinking it through. So yeah, I'd like to invite questions now, or anecdotes, or ghost stories, or folklore, or just, comments. And so I'm going to hand you back over to Rebecca, and then she'll tell you how it's going to work.
Thank you, Sarah. That was absolutely fascinating. I'm sure you'll all agree. Yeah, so yeah, we will invite questions from the participants. The way that we'll do that, just for any of you who weren't here at the start, if you want to ask a question, if you write ask in the chat box. If you have a question but you don't want to ask it, you can just type the question. So if you want to ask the question, then I will unmute you. You can, of course, now, you can, of course, put on your videos again if you'd like to and say hello. You're not obliged to do so either. So yeah, if there's any questions, you can just pop them in the box. Oh, we have one already. That was quick off the mark. And let me just find you now, Vera.
I did it myself, if that's okay.
Oh, thank you, Vera.
Hi, Vera.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you very much for your talk. It's very, your work, your practice is very interesting. And I have a very simple question. You shared kind of like few videos of your performances, and I just wonder, how do you decide what to wear?
How do I decide what I wear?
Yeah, if that is part of the, as you say, when you choose your location, you kind of like look for some space that will much more inform the concept of your work. Does it apply to the costumes as well, or to what you wear? Yeah, that would be my question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think all the formal elements of the performance, from the site to the costume to the makeup, like even with makeup, I spent quite a lot of time training myself to to do a good, a good job. Actually, the costumes in my work, it always just happens by magic somehow. Like I always just manage to find the right costume. Sometimes I work with other performers and I've had to find costumes for them as well. And it always feels like, how am I ever going to be able to find the thing? And then somehow the thing just jumps out at me. But it involves going to lots of secondhand shops and vintage shops and going through eBay and just, I don't know, it's like this eye I have for it. I know what it is when I see it, that's the right thing for that performance. But yeah, it's kind of a magic that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
Great question. Yeah, there's another, I think it's just a comment saying, are you familiar with Roland Barthes' work?
Yes, yeah, I am. I must admit, I haven't read him in many years now. I'm thinking back to my university days. But yes, I have read some. Is there any particular comment you wanted to make with regards to that? Maybe you want to speak on video. If not, don't worry.
Can I talk? Can I?
Yes, feel free to talk, Adriana.
Okay, hi. How are you, everyone? Well, I'm not in my video because I am at home and well, not prepared for being.
No problem.
But yes, I'm from Colombia, and
oh wow, brilliant.
I'm from Medellin. My mom is from Cali. So I went to Cali
Fantastic.
every single, summertime to visit my grandmother. And well, right now I'm working on Roland Barthes' mythologies.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
And it's interesting because he starts with the picture or with the sight, but then he ends with listening and with sounds, and moves kind of into psychoanalysis a bit. So I am interested in the concept of voice, your voice.
Yeah.
What does it mean, the voice and the sound, and how voice and sound how to do with the body, and that's what I am asking that about Roland Barthes.
Yeah, I with that, I haven't read that text by Roland Barthes, so I can't comment on that particularly. But in terms of my interest in the human voice, it is, this fact that unlike our bodies, which will unfortunately deteriorate, our voice can be preserved in some way and it can be displaced from our body, whether that's through recording technology or through the telephone. It travels in waves, and it's also the fact that it can penetrate other people's bodies through their ears. So it has this strangely immaterial property, even though it's something, that's produced by our organs. And I guess when I was thinking about ventriloquism in particular, I was thinking about how there might be some kind of strange other kind of guttural voice within our bodies. And I thought maybe the ventriloquism was a way to kind of explore that. I certainly have not got to the end of my questions about the voice. Like, I think that for the rest of my art practice, I will be thinking about it and researching into it. I feel like I like exploring the voice as a material itself, like rather than, lots of people talk about language, and there's lots of writing around language, but the actual voice itself is something different and very unique to each individual. So I hope I answered your question a little bit, but if there's anything more, please do ask.
Well, thank you for your response. I am the former director of the Memory Museum in Medellin.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's kind of the only memory museum we have working so far in Colombia. And it's very interesting what you're sharing today to me, because when I came into the direction, we have to start working into the collection of the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the collection is what we call intangible collection, because most of it are testimonies, which means are just the voice
Yeah.
of either the victims, civil society, or perpetrators of the human right violations through the conflict in my home country. So the voice itself has a really important connotation, and as you say, voice has something that has to do with performance. We have to go through our body, we have
Mm-hmm.
to use our body to talk. uh,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which language we're speaking in, or but talking involves our body and is a performance something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a real challenge to understand that collection, and we're still working into that. And well, that was part of my appointment, to like what we need to do with this collection, which is most of it are voices,
Yeah.
different
Of
voices
course.
that are being recorded in different contexts. And but what we have are voices, and then they're there as
Yeah.
a patrimony, as a heritage, or as the collection. And
Yeah.
it is really difficult to to go through it and to do the proper you know how can we say this, like the proper um I don't know the word, but like, yeah, how can you make a collection out of
Yeah. No,
and then they're just being recorded.
Mm.
And it's really interesting what you've been sharing today. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Adriana.
thank you
Um,
for those comments. That's really, really very interesting.
and Sinead Smith, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question. Are you there,
Hi,
Sinead?
Sarah.
Oh, here she is.
I'm here
Hello.
now.
Hi,
Hi,
Sinead.
how are you?
I'm good.
Um, I'm just wondering, are you aware of the radio station off Malin Head that's not very far from Dunree? That
Oh,
actually it's there's a weather station in there as well. They do all the shipping forecasts from there. And they
okay.
also they're the first point of contact for distress calls that come in from the sea
Oh,
at
wow.
Malin Head. And I just thought, there was something about your sirens and the voice being recorded and real-time distress calls. I did approach them quite a few years ago about a potential residency, but I think at the time it was a wee bit too out there for them. But
Yeah.
if you were already engaged in a residency and looking for data of some form, I'm sure they would be very, very um, forthcoming. They would be very supportive. But yeah,
That
and
sounds
all,
fascinating.
yeah, it just sort of, because of the rocks and the the continued coastline right round to the head that comes down and culminates in the Spilly there
Mm.
on the west coast. But also, I don't know if it's of interest to you, but the person who holds a record for sending um, uh, the communicating a low wave frequency from Ireland to America, I think maybe even Canada, lives in Inishowen as well.
Oh, wow. So that like this is the interesting thing about doing this project is I keep discovering these new things or these new contacts in the area or people who have like the things serendipitously are kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, and that frequency is I think it's a very low a low frequency that is communicated across the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
You know, so there's sort of like a big call and response thing happening there with, you know, the distress calls and
Wow.
you know, so I just thought I'd throw that into the pot for you there.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. Do you mind if we exchange emails or something in the comments?
Not at all. He's actually my uncle. So
oh wow. I'd love to hear
yeah.
more about that, and I'm sure that could potentially add another dimension to this project.
Yeah, just when you're saying the subterranean and the sub aquatic, you know, elements might tie in nicely. So there you go. I'll nice to meet you. I'll put myself
Lovely to meet you.
off
That was really interesting. Thank you. I knew people would come in with fascinating little extra bits of information, or so thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, we're very lucky in a show. And thank you so much, Sinead. Sinead is
thank you, Sinead.
Artlink member and very, very generous with in all aspects of her being. So yeah, I'm sure whenever you come that you'll meet Sinead, it's quite likely. I'm just looking, there's another question.
Rebecca.
Oh, yes, Adriana.
I'm sorry. It's just, this is so good. But then, well, I have something else to say about what the previous participant has say about Mullen Head, weather station is, well, after visiting Dunree and Mullen Head as well through the summer, I realized that the first ever wireless message that was sent ever was from that tower in Mullen Head.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
To a boat. I have the name of, I don't have the name in my head right now, but I have it in my writing, and it was I don't know if it was an American or Canadian boat, but it was the first ever Marconi wireless text sent. It was from Mullen Head's tower to that boat, and that's the
Wow.
beginning of wireless communication in the planet. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
I knew that there had been some initial, that they tried something on an island in Wales. I know that, but I had no idea that from that place there was the first wireless signal sent.
Yeah, it was ever from the Mullen Head Tower. And then I also know that the first Marconi or whatever communication wireless happened between Northern Ireland and Rathmullen Island as well.
Okay.
From Marconi's summer or winter, I don't know, house. But then, well, I can share that to you. But I found out just after visiting the places, doing some sort of research. But yeah, it's really interesting.
That's great. Thank you for all of this. I'd also, maybe we should exchange, well, we can all exchange email addresses in the comments at the end.
Yeah, and I think that Adriana will be, I don't want to give too much away, but I think that you will meet her when you come over here as well.
Oh, okay, great.
There is a question from Hattie talking about how important the form of documentation used to you in your work. So yeah, like yeah, this is kind of, isn't it? This is a part of kind of live works, is, as well as that great question about how you choose what to wear and how do you choose how to document what it is, and how important is that? I think that's what you're asking, Hattie.
Yeah, I mean, this is always a tricky one with live performance, and I've struggled with this since I've been at art school and all throughout my art career. I'm sure every performance artist has. I've tried out different things. So I didn't have time to mention it before, but now I do. The first performance you saw, which was, you may have noticed, quite grainy phone footage. There was a reason for that, because that performance actually took place in the middle of the night in this tunnel with a quite small audience of about 20 people. And we didn't want to add some big kind of camera and take away from this sort of strange experience in the middle of the night, in the middle of this tunnel. So as documentation, we asked that the audience take videos with their camera phones and then send them to us, so that we had this collection of kind of these camera phone footage. And so that was one kind of way to think about documenting work. Sometimes I feel that, like the performance that you just saw a photograph of, the Song to the Siren one, there was something about that you just couldn't capture on film. It was quite hard to get across, and I do have video of it, but it just doesn't work somehow. I like the mystery of the images and the story behind the images, and I also like having this extra bit of sound. The performance in Colombia, that's actually been, I worked with a filmmaker who edited that and turned that into this dual screen film. So that took on like a different life. Then there's this performance many years ago I did called Graceless, which has really had many different lives. It was like I did the performance, but we also filmed it as a film. And then that was shown at several screenings. So it was, you know, quite a high quality version of this performance without an audience. And then that then appeared as a video installation in Seoul in South Korea, where it was projected onto a vertical screen, and the aspect ratio was changed. So this vertical screen was hanging in the space, and it just had my kind of spectral figure sort of in this space. So that had gone from performance to film to then video installation. So there are all sorts of different methods, really. And as I said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes someone else will have a really great idea and you go with that. And again, it's one of those things I don't think I'll ever quite get to the bottom of. Every performance has a different way that then it gets, you know, put out into the world. Some performances have a kind of word of mouth quality to them as well. So it's hard.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I actually kind of speaking in relation to this and in kind of in relation to some of the other things. When you were in Colombia, you spoke about how you know, you were you kind of go to the place with a plan. And then when you get there, the space and the time and the circumstances alter kind of what your plan was, and you kind of respond to the space. So I wanted to ask you something about this kind of notion of indeterminacy. And I also wanted to ask you about how do you think or do you think that the restriction on movement that we're currently experiencing, has that changed how you value artist residencies? Because I know that your more recent stuff has all been kind of residency based. So indeterminacy and residencies is what I'm kind of asking about, not the separate and together.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And I have struggled with it slightly. The last few years I've been on a number of residencies. And, you know, then I found myself at home and working in a different way. In a way, it's good for me because I think that I don't want to go to a country and kind of just sort of cheaply make some kind of comments and then return and make this kind of work that it's like almost like being an art tourist or something. This is like a fear I have in my mind with residencies, and I've been thinking about it for some time. So actually it's given me some time to process it. And because on a residency, you never know what it's like to actually be there until you're there. And I've been very surprised on the residencies I've been on. You know, I've been completely kind of fooled by media kind of interpretations of the situation and places, and then been there and just discovered it's completely different to what I thought it would be. I think it's good for me to step back for a while and think about it. And I'm actually working on a small project with a Colombian artist at the moment, basically he works at Lugradidis, and we're trying to talk about this idea of attempting to kind of represent a space and like all the difficulties and ickiness around that, and the relationship between that and artist residencies. So we're doing this small project together at the moment. So yeah, I think it's good to kind of take a step back and reflect, and not become like some kind of art tourist moving from place to place, if that makes sense. And so to have a little bit of time to think about what it is I'm doing, and to make sure that I'm making kind of meaningful work. And
yeah, I think you definitely are making meaningful. But yeah, good to reflect on it. We just want you to be here and come and do this project. But
yeah, I mean, I do, obviously I want to be there. Of course, I think I'm just reflecting more generally on just not wanting to kind of go from place to place and make shallow work, but wanting to do interesting things. And yeah.
There's two questions here in the chat as well from Moira McIver. Thank you for the really interesting talk. Just wondering about aging in relation to sound, thinking about high frequency and young people and how this is invisible to older people.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting aspect of the human ear that we have. You know, I don't know everything about the human ear, but I understand that we have these hairs in our ears that detect, and each one detects a unique frequency. As we get older, some of these hairs die and we can no longer hear certain frequencies. And so I'm sure many of you have heard of these kind of deterrents used in shops that use frequencies that most people over the age of 30 or something cannot hear, but they annoy teenagers, or not so teenagers, stay away from these places. Yeah, it's actually it's a peculiar topic, and like maybe goes into this idea of like sonic weaponry in a way. Not to go too much into that, but the idea that, you know, that young people can hear these frequencies that older people can't. I don't know. There's something about that that's quite strange. Also, I guess like it's, you know, our human body is gradually aging and we lose access to these sounds. There's something quite sad, sadly poetic maybe about that. Is there any particular comment that you have around these higher frequencies that are only available to younger people, Moira, or is it just?
Well, it's just something I've observed quite a bit. We've got a television set.
Yeah.
Turn on the sound bar, all the young folk in the house go berserk because they can hear this high frequency pitched sound, and
yeah.
we're the older people are all sitting in the rooms, all looking at each other. So, and I have heard that as well, that it's been used as a deterrent. So I'm just interested in the idea of like of sound in relation to ideas of how we.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an interesting question, and I think yeah, it says something about what we have access to. You know, the idea that people under 30 can hear these things that we can't, and you know, people over 40 can't hear things that I can hear. It's strange. It's undoubtedly strange. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Well, I have another comment.
Great.
Maybe the last one.
Thank you.
That, well, when we were watching your first video, I thought about, well, Gaspar Noé.
Oh, yes, yeah. The filmmaker.
Exactly. But I thought about Irreversible, you know, that movie.
I've never seen it actually because I'm kind of scared to watch it. But I know what it's about. Yeah.
But it's really, really, well, for some reason, that was the first thing that came into my mind watching your video of you in that tunnel, kind of singing or performing is really related to that proposal or artistic gesture of irreversible. And well, I found that amazing and beautiful. And well, that's what I would like to say. And just thank you for the inspiration of your talk today.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for your comments. And yeah, that's a really kind thing to say. Thank you very much. And I hope we meet and can exchange ideas.
Yeah, me too. I wish we can at some point.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you anyway.
You too.
It's kind of cool actually, just on that whole like meeting and exchanging ideas. I mean, it's amazing actually. There's some people in this this artist talk participating in this artist talk from all over the world. So it's really wonderful that everybody is able to join us. That's a great thing about this. There's another question from James McSparren. When whales and dolphins participate in fatal mass beaching, it is said to be from ultrasonic pollution from human activity. Would Sarah ever use her art practice to bring more attention to this problem? God, sorry, even reading that was making me feel.
It's something I've thought about. A few years ago, when I was researching into the Siren mythology, I was also looking at the same time into various ocean sound phenomenon. And I found out about this thing called the SOFAR channel. Excuse me if I explain it slightly wrong, but it's basically a deep sea channel where sound moves extremely slowly due to pressure, temperature, and salinity. And whales and dolphins use it for communication. And the sound travels thousands of miles through this channel because it can't escape. It sort of keeps refracting. And unfortunately, in recent years, this channel has become polluted, mainly, I believe, by people searching for oil, sending like radar. I might be getting this wrong, but down, and sound gets essentially trapped in that tunnel, and then whales lose their way essentially. And this is often apparently what leads to whales turning up in places that they shouldn't turn up in. So it is a big problem, and I'm aware of this, and it's always difficult to speak about one specific, well, I find it difficult to speak about one specific issue in my work. I often think about what responsibility I have as an artist, and how I use my research, and what I want my work to do. It's certainly, something I think about bringing attention to, but I'm not sure how yet. But that's a little bit of my research into that issue.
I think even mentioning the fact that this is how sea life communicate is raising awareness, without kind of waving a banner or things like that actually just having those conversations, I think is raising awareness. Oh yes, Bernadette Hopkins made a very good point that there was a local performance artist, James King, very good friend of mine, who works with voice, is well renowned in the area, who works with voice, has done for, I don't know, decades. Yeah, you should definitely meet James.
Okay, another person to meet.
Another person to meet. Paul Murray.
Many artists in the area of Dunree, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's it.
In the Inishowen area.
Paul Murray has. Hi Sarah, have you found any frequencies during your recording or post-productions that have provoked an emotional response from you? I am externally sound sensitive. Oh, Paul, maybe, yeah. That's yeah. What are you?
Yeah, I mean, I did have an experience once when I was editing, when I started to feel extremely sick. And I was quite concerned. Like I was listening to the sound that I recorded of this this sort of what's the word, like a propeller, and it just really made me feel deeply uncomfortable. This was before I knew much about infrasound. This was many years ago, and I just remember just this awful feeling that I had because of it. And when I stopped listening to it, the sickness went away quite soon after. So I would like it was strange to have that sensation. You know, obviously I'm still in the initial stage of my research into infrasound and ultrasound. So I'm sure I'll make some other kind of discoveries along the way. But there's all sorts of myths around certain frequencies producing certain emotional responses or, certain physical reactions. Some things of which are true, such as eyeballs vibrating and stuff like that. But yeah, what about you? Have you experienced any frequencies that have sort of brought a emotional response, either positive or negative? Only if you want to talk. If not, don't worry.
I would be extremely sound sensitive. It's just there might be a bit of background noise going on here, but yeah, there'd be a lot of frequencies and sounds, and that I would have a very strong emotional response to. I used to, in my younger years, I used to be a sound engineer. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
So there'd be a lot of different gigs and a lot of different instruments, but music would definitely be a massive, have a massive emotional effect on me as well as many sounds. But yeah, I often thought about those sounds that we can't hear, as you say, in the infrasound range.
I mean, of course, as like a sound engineer as well, you would have had to really be extremely sensitive as part of your job to different sound frequencies. So
yeah, you would have to tune into certain frequencies so that they wouldn't feed back and stuff like that. There, just that would be kind of, I don't know. I suppose being visual as well, you can see sound, so you kind of feel it in the air, and you'd have to kind of take it out or put it in, whatever's missing. So
yeah, I mean, certainly with music, like, there are moments I'm sure we've all experienced where it just, whether it's something to do with the composition or certain frequencies or, where it kind of takes us away. But, when you see like a really amazing, like someone, a mix engineer or someone who does mastering, that kind of sound engineer, and they're able to like just make a piece of music that much better because they know which frequencies to bring up and down, and they just know how to kind of emote and bring out the best from the music. I think that's a really special skill.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just found it very interesting when you were saying about the lighthouses and how the kind of the ghost stories around lighthouses, and maybe that there is that connection with that old feeling.
Well, I'm not from the sound, field or anything like that, but was directing the museum, I spent a few weeks down in the Amazon River.
Oh, wow.
With the communities. We traveled from south of Colombia, which is the Putumayo, towards the Amazon River. And most of the time we were companioned by the pink dolphins. And
by the what, sorry?
The pink dolphins.
Oh, right. Okay, wow.
You know that
I've not heard of the pink dolphins. No.
About the pink dolphins, what they're masculine. The pink dolphins in our mythology are not feminine; they're masculine. But even though they make this special sound, and then they have this special mythology around them, and then we kind of grow up out of that mythology of this female figure of the pink dolphin. And and I recorded as a non-professional, just like a normal visitor, can you
Yeah.
say, the sounds and how they behave when you are deep in the Amazon River. And it's really interesting, the relationship between the pink dolphin and the anaconda, which makes another type of sound. The anaconda is feminine, the dolphin is masculine, but you need
Okay.
of their sounds to understand the behavior of the jungle, kind of thing, into
Interesting.
the mythology of the people from the Amazon basin, which is really amazing. And well, we can talk about this in another time, I guess.
Yeah, I think we should have a proper conversation.
Yeah, I
Sounds
know.
like we have a lot in common with our ideas.
Yes, but I keep with me the recordings and the pictures and everything.
Oh, great.
Keep it with me. Okay, and I'm
That's great.
willing to
I'd like
share.
to see them one day.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we will set up a meeting with Adriana. A few people have had to leave. A lot of people have been saying what a great talk it was, fascinating. There's so many lovely compliments. I'm going to save the chat so I can send it to you, Sarah.
Oh, great. I can
I-
see it just like in the side. I'm like, oh, nice.
yeah, just for those days, and you can just see all the lovely comments. Yeah, I'm just conscious of the time, and it's evening time and things like that. And it's hard to sit in front of a screen, and I haven't been able to give you any complimentary wine or anything. So I just wanted to just check, is there anybody who wanted to ask any kind of final questions, and then we might kind of wrap up.
I don't know if Marianne is still here, but I saw earlier that she had a question.
Oh, okay. Did I miss something? Sorry.
I don't know if she still wants to ask it or not. Oh, no, it's just a comment about something that might be of interest to me. Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if there are any other questions, but if anyone has any burning questions, say them now. If not, I'm happy for my email address to be shared and for people to ask me questions privately.
Okay, well, yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, wonderful evening. Thanks very much, everybody. I wonder if I can just kind of unmute everybody. Can I do that? And you can do a wee clap. I don't know if I can do that. You can unmute yourselves if you want to do a wee clap.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's lovely to have this opportunity to give a talk, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, there's a final. Rod Stewart, Sean Beattie. What do you mean, Rod Stewart?
Maybe it was for another conversation.
Possibly.
In this chat
Although
box.
he is a great. I do like Rod Stewart now. I don't know what. Something good to listen to. Okay, guys, thank you so much for participating. Sarah, that was brilliant. It was so insightful. And just very, very clearly spoken. You were dealing with very complex topics and very abstract ideas, and you portrayed it all very, very clearly. And I loved the visuals. They were just very well chosen and lovely to see. And we can't wait for you to come to Dunree.
I can't wait to come, even though I said, it's good to have a pause. It is, but also I can't wait to get there. I've got this feeling now, like I've read like so many newspaper articles in the archive and seen so many pictures, and I'm just like, I need to be there, but
And we'll all be here waiting for you.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Rebecca, as well, for hosting the talk. I'm very
No
grateful.
problem. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for participating and engaging. And we'll see you soon.